Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast, where we raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. I'm Dr. Ebony Green, your host, and I'm super excited to be with you today. If you want to follow us on all major platforms, look us up at Hello Kind Soul Podcast. And if you want to follow me, look me up at E Green Equity. I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a great day. Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast. I am so excited to be in community with you this week. And we are being blessed with an additional person joining us today. I'm super excited to welcome Dr. Danielle Martin to join us today. She's an amazing human and truly a kind soul. And so we're going to chop it up about this notion of like, what does it mean to be obedient to the calling on your life? And how does that lead us to abundance? But before we do that, I want to welcome Dr. Martin, and please share who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share time and space with you. So a little bit about me. I am a mother. I'm an educator. Former first grade teacher. So I spent some time in the K-12 realm for about 11, 12 years before moving into higher ed. So I've been in higher ed the last 10 years of my professional career. And, I think I'm just going to go out here and put it out here. I am somebody who is an advocate and an educational activist. Being in this space is pretty challenging for all my teachers who are out there. You already know what I'm talking about, but not just in terms of being in the classroom, but now being on the front lines of fighting for all things educational, you know what I mean? And fighting for those who don't have a voice. So I'm coming into my calling in that way. Who else am I? I'm a producer. I'm in the sense that if you put something in front of me, I'm going to produce great things from it. I'm creative. I love art, love music. That's a little bit about me and who I am.
That's awesome. I appreciate you joining us today. So it's amazing to me, just the gift to have you here today. We've chatted before. And so one of the things we were talking about when we were chatting was like this notion of like obedience, right? And how hard it is to stay focused 10 toes down when you know what the calling is, because it's rough, right? And it's tough and it's easy to just say, listen, this is too hard. I'm gonna go back to the easier thing. So I guess the first question I have is like, how did you figure out what you were called to do? Like, what did that look like and feel like and sound like to you so that you understood like my season is shifting a little bit? Like, what did that look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I don't think I really understood the assignment until now being older, right? Like I always knew as a young person, I wanted to be in front of young people. I wanted to help young people. Initially, I thought I wanted to be a juvenile probation officer. I don't know why, but still helping young people, right? And until that flipped into teaching. Like I'm somebody who used to line my stuffed animals up in my bedrooms and give them assignments. Going through college, I just always had that passion to help, to teach, to love on. I've had great teachers in my life, but I also had teachers and professors who told me I wasn't going to amount to anything, right? And so you can either choose to believe that, or you can use that and add fuel to the fire, and find yourself motivated by that statement. And that's what I did. It wasn't until I had been through some teaching, and it was a point in my career where the district that I was in was going through some changes and furloughs. And I was one of the teachers who got furloughed. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was one of the best teachers in the building. I was one of the best and brightest young teachers who had stepped in, presenting at international conferences just in year 2 of my teaching career. And so I was like, oh, what? and getting into that space with God. And God told me then, and I think about this now and it kind of makes me emotional, but he told me then, I will place you in arenas where you will be able to teach. These four walls won't be able to contain you. And
Mm.
so then I was like, I don't know what that means, but that's not helping me now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that really means. But okay. So then, it's dropping on my spirit, just trust me. So from there, I began to work in a career and collegiate awareness program. For those listening, if you're familiar with Gear Up, the program was called Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs to help young people in undeserved areas prepare for a career in college. So I got my foot in there and I still was teaching, right? And fast forward, after 6 or 7 years, I left that program and I stepped into higher ed, dealing with admissions, dual enrollment, still helping people prepare, helping families prepare, giving presentations. I'm still teaching, right? Um, to now. So during that time period when I first stepped into higher ed, that's when it was dropped in my spirit that I needed to go further my education and pursue a doctorate. And initially, I was like, child, the way I can't do that. Mm-mm. I had young kids. My girls were young at the time. Um, the community college that I worked at, shout out to Harrisburg Area Community College and its leadership. They were so great for me in me getting a stepping stone in the higher ed space. Um, they offered me, hey Danielle, we think you would be an amazing doctor. Like, we want you to further your education and we'll help you pay for it, right? The college will
Mm.
put up a certain percentage towards that degree, right? So now this is the second time I'm hearing it. The first time it was dropped on me, I was like, listen, the way I ain't finna do that. Like, my loans is paid off. Like, I'm good. Can't do that. The next time it came around, now leadership is saying this to me. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that. I have my master's. I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna stop here because sometimes we get so caught up in being complacent and
Mm.
comfortable in our space that we can't see. We just don't see the next level or further down the path because we are where we are. And I fought that. I lived in that space um, for years. And what was in my brain was all the reasons why I couldn't do it.
Mm.
I made up all the, oh my God, well, if you're paying a percentage, who's gonna come up with the other percentage? Oh my God, well, my twins are young, you know, who's gonna help me with that? All the reasons why. So fast forward about 2 years later, when I was looking to advance from the college or just move into a different position. Um, and I interviewed at a 4-year university. And so the interview was great. I kind of left like, if they don't hire me, something's wrong. Just felt, I just left feeling really good. Um, and one of the first things they said to me, when they offer you the position, thank you so very much, Ms. Martin, for accepting the offer. One of the things that you can do here at our university, if you choose to, is you can choose to further your education, your partner, your spouse, and your children. So
Mm.
when I left the community college space, I was like, oh, I'm not doing this, whatever. But I just remember feeling like, okay, God, like you were funny, right? Like I had all those questions in my brain, like how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to make things happen. And so then here comes the blessing. Not only did I get the job, but I have an awesome opportunity to capitalize off of where I'm at and further my education for no cost to me. So,
So
so
it's
I say all of that to say, like, when you're supposed to be in a space and when you're supposed to do certain things, he will make a way for you to do those things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hear you saying like it didn't just show up once or twice, but the third time it came and it came completely free, right? And so, one, to your point, like it is easy to be complacent because it's comfortable, right? There's no ripples, there's no waves, life's pretty good, everything's kind of good. Um, but this idea of like at some point you had to decide, I'm willing to take the jump, right? So what I want our listeners to really tap into is like the entire stage can be set, but if you're not willing to walk out on the stage, you don't get to the place you're supposed to go, right? Like there was a level of there was something that had to switch in you from the tape saying
Mhm.
you can't do it, it's too much, it's going to be too exhausting, I have other stuff, other responsibilities. But so you had to decide, like, okay, I'm ready to walk into this season, even though I don't even really know what I'm walking into or why. I'm going to be obedient
Right.
to what I'm being asked to do.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And that's a scary place to be, right? Because you can't see ahead. You don't know what's coming. But what I did know was, and I'm not a preacher, but this is just my testimony. This is my story. What I did know is that if God did it for me one time before, He was going to do it for me again. And He did it for me in times when I couldn't see things and when I didn't understand. And He kept doing it for me because I kept walking. You walk by faith and not by sight. So I continued to walk. And every time that I was continuing to walk and He delivered, I continued to trust.
Mm.
And so when you have that situation, by the time I had gotten to the place where I am now professionally at this university, I was like, you know what? I've done this before. I've walked this walk before. Okay. All right, Lord, I hear you. Let me take 2 years to learn my job, and then I'm going to apply for school. By the time I applied for school, my faith was so just like I was in it that I applied for school with the expectation of I'm going to get my acceptance letter. I don't know when it's coming, but I know it's coming because I'm supposed to do this. And so, lo and behold, 2 months later, I got my email, got my acceptance letter, and I was on my way. The thing about the whole thing that's interesting to me is that if you would have asked me several years ago, would I be in the space that I am now? I'd be like, girl, no. Anybody think about that?
Mm. Mm. Do you take time to process all that you've done? Because you've been in it. Like you've been getting your doctorate, but life's been happening while you're getting your doctorate, right? And so have you had an opportunity to really look back and celebrate not just what you've accomplished, but the level of resilience and grace that you've offered yourself in the storms while doing the thing that you've been called to do?
You know, that's a good question. I've done it more so now than I've ever done it before. Um, because what he doesn't promise us is that everything is going to be easy, right? So I'm pushing you to go this way. I'm pushing you to go this way for a reason, but I'm not saying that you're going to be able to just walk without fail. I'm not saying you ain't going to trip and fall and, bust your kneecap up and need a band-aid. I'm not saying any of that. I'll be right there, but I'm not saying that you're not going to face trials. And, during that time for me, um, mm, I survived a very unhealthy, toxic relationship. I was raising young ladies. By this time, we were in COVID. So the world has shut down, and I'm still
Mm.
trying to be a student, working full time, and having those pressures and things on me. When I look back at that time, I'm just like, yo, I was going through it. I was going through it for real. But even in my going through, I never felt like he wouldn't come through and deliver again. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Because I
mhm.
had again, I've been in situations too many times where he's come through for me. But growing, right? Growing pains. You don't grow if you're not outside of your comfort zone. So again, you can either take those experiences and have woe is me moments and stay there and get stuck, or you can take them, look at them, and say, what is the blessing in the lesson? Give yourself some grace. You know, all that grace that you be out here giving everybody else, but you don't give it to yourself. I need you to
100%.
give it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? How often do we do that? Right? We're so hard on ourselves. And I would also have to say that he used my children to support me and give me life during that time as well.
Mm.
So yeah, resilience. Ooh, child.
Well, and it's interesting because when we think about resilience, that thought that always comes to mind, and someone said this to me years ago, there's only two ways to come out of a situation, bitter or better. And so we, if we're not careful and intentional and really able to position the hard days, right? Because it's hard to stay focused and dedicated to something you know you've been
Absolutely.
called to do. And I almost feel like
Mhm.
when you're called to do things, life gets harder. Like I think I've like in my mind, I've
Yes.
like romanticized, like I'm living in purpose. And what you don't understand is when you're in purpose, it's so much harder.
That's oh my God. Oh my God.
Right. So
And
I start to say to my
everybody sees you, right? They see you and they see your pictures and they see you doing your thing. And just like I said to you, oh, that t-shirt is fly. That is great. I don't know what you went through to have that t-shirt, you know? Like you see my picture and you see me smiling, but oh, buddy, do you know? So I was at a point where the victory in my day some days was just that I woke up and I got out of bed to shower.
mm,
Nobody
yep,
sees that part.
yep, yep. And I think that's the beauty of these conversations. So often people, when I'm thinking about inviting people on, I'm always like, who can I talk to who's going to be real about it? Like, right? Because to whom much is given, much is required. And I think for many people, a lot of our watchers, our listeners, you know, when we do lives and we talk and people chat and, you know, chime in through our chats with us, their biggest thing is like, you know, no one really talks about this stuff, right? Like we only often celebrate all of our wins. But and when you're
Mhm.
watching people, it's elusive, right? Like you think it's one thing's happening that's not.
Right.
So the fact that you're sharing, like, yes, I accomplished all of this stuff. And there's some days that getting up
Mhm.
was the accomplishment, getting showered, getting ready, and doing it again, right? And so I appreciate your vulnerability and your
Mhm.
transparency for folks who are trying to figure out what that season should look like. The other thing I'm curious about is like, so what do you do? What do you say to yourself when it gets tough? Like, because when it gets tough for me, there are days, to your point, that I'm like, it's so much easier to just go get a job. Like, I'm gonna go get a job, right? Like, and then I'm like, nah, I'm not, right? But that conversation for you, it's not go get a job, but I'm sure there are conversations you have when it gets tough. Um, what do you say to yourself to stay locked in? Like, how do you stay locked in, even when you kind of ready to give up or to walk away?
Yeah. As you were talking and I'm just reflecting on our last exchange, I was thinking about the song. What's that Fantasia song? You know, she's like, sometimes you got to lose to win. Right. And so I didn't lose anything like, you know, monetary or materialistic in that time period, but I had to lose a relationship. I had to shed, right?
Mm,
Um, some things. I had to shed some pounds, not physically, but I just had to get some weight off of me so that I can step into the next, um, you know, season or whatever it is. But I am a person who's, yes, I talk to myself all the time. I call them personal staff meetings. Okay. Um, but you know what? one of the conversations that I have with myself is it's not about me, right? The impact that I have been blessed to have on other people is really because I allow God to speak through me. Is really, so my little ritual, not even ritual, but my little thing before I'm about to speak or do a presentation, or even before I came on this call with you, is that real quick prayer. Lord, I don't know who is out here that needs to hear my story or my message, but if I'm able to just touch one person, one soul in your name, like, you get all the glory. So that conversation with myself is, I got to get up. I got to do this service, right? I'm serving somebody else. It's not about me. So I have to be able to step out of myself and to deliver whatever it is that I'm delivering, a message, a presentation, whatever, teaching, to somebody, to some soul who didn't know that they needed before they encountered me. So it's not about me. This is
Mm.
why I show up in places and spaces where some people won't. Like, this is why I show up at our state capitol. I know they about sick of me, but I don't care, because it's about me. It's not about me. It's about somebody else who needs me to be here for them. So that's what most of my conversations are like. I know you're tired. I know you want to take a nap. It's not about you right now. Somebody else, somewhere out here. And this is how I know this to be true. When I was going through my program, my pastor said to me, Danielle, somebody is waiting for you to finish.
Mm.
Because I was fussing about, like, I'm tired. Oh my God, not another draft. Oh, I got more edits. You know, all the things we go through. But he said to me, and I never forget that, somebody is waiting for you to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to sit with that for a minute. And when I finished, I had a young lady say to me, you just gave me permission to follow my dreams. And I was
Mm.
like, wow. So it's not about me. Somebody is waiting for the listener, for the viewer, somebody is waiting for you to finish what you started, because you're giving them inspiration, you're giving them encouragement, you're giving them permission to step into whatever it is they are stepping into. And it might be their calling. You may be the reason why they are stepping into their calling and purpose. I
I
don't know if
love
that
that.
answers your question, but
It's interesting too. I'm curious if you remember. Sometimes I feel like hindsight is 2020, right? And so a lot of things that are happening to us, like in this moment right now, our exchange, 2 years from now, this will have a completely different context, because it'll be grounded in us planting seeds and talking about something that 2 years from now or 2 months from now can come to fruition, right? So I'm wondering, when you were in the season of shedding, we'll call it, right? When you were letting go of things that no longer served you, did you know that's what you were doing? Or was it in your reflection of what you just came through that you noticed all of these things that were happening, that I was getting rid of, that I was moving away from, that is being moved away from me, was preparing me to step into a new season? So did you get it while it was happening, or did you know it and realize it in hindsight?
I don't think I got it while it was happening. I was so deep into it.
Mm.
So again, back to talking about that comfort zone, right? Yes, you get so deep in your comfort zone that you don't really want to come out, right? Who wants to go outside when it's a polar vortex and it's like -10 outside? You trying to go outside? You trying to stay in where it's warm, right? Right now it's
Yeah.
1,000 degrees for the like third or fourth week here in the summer. I ain't trying to go outside unless I have to. I'm comfortable in here. I don't think I really knew that that's what I was doing until years later. And so now I'm, 3 or 4 years removed from it. There are still things that happen to this day, or prayers that I had back then that are being answered now. And that I'm like, whoa, thank you, God. But yeah, I don't think I knew that then. I definitely don't think I knew that then. All I could see um really was pain.
Mm,
and being tired. I remember being exhausted.
yeah. I'm curious, do you like part of what our conversation was several weeks ago was that being obedient to what you're called to do, how you really live called to live your life, which I think is something that folks really struggle with, right? Because part of it is that everyone else has ideas about how we're supposed to live our life. And then you have an idea about how you're supposed to live your life. And then as you evolve, the concept of who you're here to serve, what you're here to accomplish, whose lives you're going to touch changes. So I'm curious, we talked about it from this context of as I become more obedient to how I'm led to live, there's this notion of abundance that almost goes hand in hand. And that doesn't mean, folks who are listening, because you are experienced or in a season of abundance does not mean you don't have challenges. Like I can, it's two things can be true. I can have an amazing life of abundance and be challenged by multiple things at the same exact time. So one, can you
Yes.
define what you, when you say abundance, what that means to you? And could you possibly share, like, what do you think that has become as a result of the way you've learned to live your life? If that makes sense. So, what does abundance mean? And
Mm,
what are the parallels? So, I was obedient in doing these things, and this is this is the abundance that's kind of attached to that. And so,
mm,
yeah, let's go with those.
mm. So when I think of abundance, I think of it in terms of reward. And I don't mean a monetary situation. I feel like the things that I was called to do and I had to be obedient with, I received a reward for being obedient.
Mm,
Um, and so as I think of abundance, so I'll just use one situation. Even in my darkest time, I was still trying to live the way that I should be living as an example for my daughters. They probably saw the ugliest parts, right? They saw the blood, they saw the sweat, they saw the tears, all of that.
mm,
But what they constantly saw me do was still give praise, right? They constantly saw me do was pray. Um, and they saw me really cry and almost break down, which was a good thing because it humanized me to them. You know, sometimes we think that our parents are some type of super people, and we're
100%.
not. We're really just regular people. So that humanized me for them, which was, I think, good for them to see. But fast forward to them leaving for college, and they had to adjust, and they was experiencing some crazy things and different people and different spirits and things of that nature. But what they knew to do was to pray because they saw me do it. What they knew to do was to worship because they saw me do it. And so to me, as I think about abundance, my reward for my obedience way back here was my children making the decision to follow God and become saved. That was like,
Mm, I love
that
that.
was major to me. So back to my point about it not being about you, and there are things that you have to do, and there are things that are ways that you have to live your life a certain way because somebody is watching you, right? So in this case, it's my children, and they're watching me and how I handle every situation. um no pressure, right? But that's how the world is, right? Like, we have people on TV that we watch and we admire, and we're waiting for their next decision, right? From politics all the way down. How are they living their life? What does their life say about them? How are they serving other people? Um, we don't know that whether or not they're being obedient, but like, what is the outcome of what they're doing? So when I think of abundance, I just think of all of the ways that God has rewarded me for. And that might be, again, not monetarily, but that might be the connection that you and I had. We have
Mm.
a mutual friend. That was a blessing. This now connection is a blessing to me. That's abundance.
I love that. And
There's so many, yeah.
I just appreciate you speaking to it, because I think when you say abundance, people think money. They think like actual material things. And I think what's going on often in the world we're living in is people forget that there are so many blessings in the course of your day that do not involve money. And so if we only
Right.
deduce
Yeah.
the riches down to some material thing, we lose the beauty of it. We lose the gift of receiving all these different opportunities and relationships and people and connections and lessons, right? And the blessing that your children through your life learned how to respond and what to apply in their lives so that they are good, right? And that they're able to persist. So I appreciate that. And we're to the point we're going to wrap up, but I want to leave and ask you probably a really important question that no one has ever asked you before. And that's, what does it mean to be a kind soul?
Hmm. I said to somebody the other day, it costs absolutely nothing to be kind, right?
Mm.
Um, what it means to me to be a kind soul is love. It means grace. It means forgiveness. We live in a space right now where people are not those three things I just named. Um, it's time, giving of your time to somebody. It's transparency and accountability, right? We also live in a space where culturally it's not cool to be transparent. We feel like we need to be all the other things but transparent. And not have any accountability. So accountability is huge. And if I'm calling you a friend or a kind soul, we can do those things for each other. We can hold each other accountable in love, because that's what kindness is. Love is kindness. Kindness is patience. I know we all encounter, at least I do. It's probably people that get on my nerves every day. But um, I don't know where they're coming from. You know what I mean? I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know if they're hanging on their last thread. I don't know what kind of morning they've had. Um, so a kind soul is also compassionate. I would say that would be I know there's a lot of things in there, but when I think of a kind soul, that's what I think of.
I appreciate that. And I agree with you, right? There's so many layers to it. But to your point, kindness is like one of the things in the world that we could be free to be every day, right? I appreciate you jumping on and chopping it up with us. I appreciate you sharing and being transparent and part of the journeys and what obedience looks like for you, sounds like for you, and ultimately sharing what is the abundance that came from it. And so the story you shared about your children is beautiful. And so I want to say thank you. Our listeners want to say thank you. I hope
Thank
you have an
you.
incredible, incredible week. And I hope you come
You
back to Circle the
too.
Block and join us again.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I will. Of course. Of course I will. Thank you. Thank you to you all out there. And while we're still on, be kind to yourself, because we're not always
100%.
that.
Do you have any social medias that you want us to follow? You can shout them out now, folks. Go follow her at.
Oh, sure. You can find me on Facebook. I'm just Danielle Martin on Facebook, Danielle Martin EDD on LinkedIn, or Dr. Danny _2 on Instagram. So yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate you. Have an amazing, amazing week, kind souls. We will see you again. Peace.